The best time to plant a tree, ancient Chinese proverb says 20 years ago. The second best time is today. You got to get in action today. Stop waiting for the economy, the election, for this, for that, for any of your kids to grow up. Start your business now. There is a way to do that.
Welcome to Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You, the podcast that focuses on Christians that are active in everyday life. Join in as we speak to everyone from successful business owners to educators to athletes about their faith and how it helps them reach out and revolutionize those around them to do the same. And now get ready to roar with your host, the voice of manifestation, John Fuller.
Hey, Roar Nation, John Fuller here, episode 36. I am fired up and ready to go with Mr. Jim Palmer. Jim, are you fired up and ready to go, buddy?
Yes, I am.
Let's do the Jim and John show.
Jim Palmer is a marketing and business building expert at In Demand Coach. He is the founder of Dream Business Academy and Dream Business Coaching and Mastermind Program. Jim is the host of Dream Business Coach TV, a hit weekly web TV show watched by thousands of entrepreneurs and small business owners. He is also the host of Stick Like Glue Radio, love the name, a weekly podcast based on Jim's unique brand of smart marketing and business building strategies. Jim is best known internationally as the Dream Business Coach and creator of No Hassle Newsletters, the ultimate done-for-you newsletter marketing program used by hundreds of clients in 9 countries. All right, Jim, I'm obviously having a hard time this morning, which has been fun. I don't think I've ever been this tongue-tied. But, Jim, let's dive into a little bit more of what you do and why you do it.
You know, I was on this track, had a pretty good career going, and when I was 40, I became a VP of marketing for this company. It was kind of my loose goal. I wanted to be a VP by the time I was 40 for no other reason other than ego. And then
I love that you said that. Other than ego.
Well, that's right.
Let's be real, right?
I wanted to make money. I wanted to have a boat. When we got married, I said, Stephanie, I've always, been into my family's been into boating. I would like, let's have us have a boat. She goes, well, let's have kids first. And she won. We've had 4 kids, and we now got 3 grandkids. But when I was 41 years old, and I can tell you this with clarity because hindsight is, 2020. God was not pleased with my progress. I was pretty much a see and ear. For those listening that have no idea what that is I went to church on Christmas and Easter.
Nice.
And he was just unpleased. And, it's not like I didn't believe in God. I just had no relationship with the Lord at all. When I did go to church, I thought if I could spare $10 or $20 in the offering plate, that was a big deal. And, I really felt that I was in control of my career. I mean, most men kind of think that. And as I say, God was really, I think, getting impatient with me, John. And so he took away my job. My position was eliminated. I thought, with everything I've done up to this point, I'm going to have no trouble landing another high-paying job pretty quickly. Well, that turned into 15 months of unemployment. And in 1 year into that, I was diagnosed with cancer. So here I am unemployed. We lost the meager savings we did have, was really racking up a substantial amount of debt, keeping the family afloat. I had 4 teenagers at home and all, insurances and mortgages and stuff. And then to have the cancer, I think I look at it this way. God loves you so much, he will occasionally bless you with a season of crises. And when he brings you into a season of crises, that basically drops you to your knees. And that's what happened for me. And so after I had my surgery for cancer in September 2001, I remember I was on the couch kind of recovering, and I saw those planes hit the towers on September 11th. And then the economy, if it wasn't already in a doldrums, it went all to hell. And, well, pardon my French there, but went completely.
We've had worse on our podcast. Don't worry.
Okay. And every other job prospect that was even a remote possibility was now gone. So at that point, this once confident, I didn't say I had like an overbearing ego. I was not a bad father or husband, but I was very, driven by things and status and stuff like that. And I think God wore me down. He had to rebuild me. And so the only thing I could think to do, because up till that point, John, I'd been saying, admittedly some half-hearted prayers. Hey, I need a job. Can you help me get a job? Can you please point out some jobs. It was things like that. And I got on my knees, and I don't know where the words came from, because at this point I had really not, I don't know if I even said one prayer my whole life, but I said, God, I've completely made a mess of this. I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please tell me what it is you want me to do? God spoke to me almost instantly, said, you need to become an entrepreneur. Basically, everything you've done till now has led you to starting your own business. And
hold on real quick. I'm going to jump in and out. So when you said that, like you have this light bulb moment, God speaks that to you. What did you feel? I mean, what are you thinking? Like, were you prepared for that? Or because like it just resonated in your spirit, or were you a little fearful, or what were you thinking?
All of the above, John. It not only resonated, I instantly felt a sense of relief, because that would mean I wouldn't be an unemployed loser anymore. That's kind of how I felt. And so when I thought, but here's the thing, and shows my naivete, but it's also, quite accurate as to what happened. And I said, man, I really like this. I've planned on being a business owner all my life, but it was just never a good time with, 4 teenagers and all the expenses that go with that. And I said, God, yeah. So John, check this out. I turned my life over to the Lord. I left that part out. At that point, I said, God, you're in control. I fully recognize that now. So my next thing was, I don't even know if this is possible or if this is the right thing to do or not. I'm talking to God like I have no idea what to do. And I said, I think you want me to start a business, which I would love to do, but I have no money. We're heavily in debt, and I don't feel like I have any more time to waste. Could you, if it's possible, I'd like to ask you to give me 3 signs that I got this correct. And listen to this, John. Within 1 week, actually 3 days after I prayed that prayer, Congress passed another 6-month extension on unemployment, because the economy was not doing great back then, and I was just about to run out, and so I had another 6 months of unemployment to come in while I was starting to get going. A couple of days after that, my wife Stephanie, about 3 or 4 months into my unemployment, she went back to work. She had been a stay-at-home mom to that point, and she was an assistant director for a child care facility. And 3 days after that extension of unemployment, she got her own center. She became a director, which was like another $12,000 of salary for her, which was like huge. And then on the 6th day, even when I tell this story on some of these type of shows, it never hits me until I say on the 6th day, I went to the gym to exercise to try and relieve some stress. And somebody I recognized there, I'll say a friend, but I've never socialized, just one of those gym friends,
Yeah, we all got 'em.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, so hey, Bill, hey, Jim, how's the job hunt going? The question I've been getting for like 15 months. And I goes, not so good. And he goes, why don't you stop messing around and start your own business? And that was 3. And I'm like, I just about cried. I kind of grabbed my chest. I looked up and go, okay, I get it. And I started my business October of 2001.
Okay, so what was your business? What did you, up to this point, you talked a little bit, you said you did some marketing, and I listened to your book, which was fantastic, by the way, Giving. You talked about Dan Kennedy being a mentor, which I love his stuff. I have his No BS Marketing, I think. But anyways, love listening to the guy. What did you start? So what were your strengths? What were you jumping into?
I was in director of marketing. I ran a national franchise. I was in retail and training. I'd done all these different things. And I thought, well, what are you going to do with all this experience? I thought, well, I'll be a consultant, and I'll doggone it, I'll be a high-paid consultant. Well, selling yourself as a consultant, I found, is pretty hard. But everywhere I went, from the time I was 21 when I wrote my first newsletter, I had brought company newsletters into the fold. And so I started offering newsletters, because there's not a business on the planet that can't benefit from a newsletter. And I thought, every business within any distance of me is a potential customer. So I started offering newsletters, and that business took off. And 5 years later, I was doing multiple 6 figures, and I was making money again, but I was working like a dog. You know what it's like. You're chief cook and bottle washer. You're doing everything. I know, you're in contracting and things. That means you get up at 5 a.m. You're at work. If you do leave at 4 or 5, you got to go home and do estimates and meet people and phone calls until you fall into bed and do it all again, right? I know some. Yeah, right. So, but what I did, I had real kind of a awakening moment. It was one evening in July. My wife and I were sitting out back after dinner, and she says to me, Jim, I got a question to ask you. And I'm thinking, whoa, when you preface the fact that you got to ask a question.
I hate those, man. My wife does that to me, and I'm like, I feel like I'm getting set up for this big question. Sometimes it's nothing, and other times I'm like, oh, crap.
She said, when are we going on vacation? We haven't been on vacation since 2000, before you lost your job. And at first I'm like, whoo, I don't know what bullet I dodged, but I'm glad it was only about vacation, right? But then literally in about a half a second, John, my mind kicked into like hair on fire overdrive, because I was thinking, how can I go on vacation? I am my business. I answer the phones. I do deliveries. I meet with clients. I oversee printing and mailing. I'm writing the newsletters. I was doing everything. And that meant I knew I was fast maxing out the available time to keep growing, but I figured, well, there's a point where I'll just grow and that'll be it. But now suddenly I can't take off. And so it was at that point I started to transition and reinvent myself yet again. And a year later, I immersed myself in Dan Kennedy style training. I learned internet marketing from Corey Rudel and some others. And I launched my first internet business in 2007 called No Hassle Newsletters, where I now had clients. I could sell my done-for-you templates instead of just creating newsletters for one client at a time. And then I launched No Hassle Social Media, Concierge Print and Mail on Demand, Custom Article Generator. I launched a couple things that had to do with Twitter and Pinterest. And next thing you know, in about 2008 or so, a lot of people I was meeting at different seminars saying, how are you creating all these like revenue streams, all these different businesses? And that's when I started my Dream Business Coaching program. And I wrote my first book in 2009. I wrote a book a year for 6 years. And so life is good. And I've been very, very blessed. You mentioned one of my audiobooks. It's called Serve First. And that's a story that I told, that explains why I've been so blessed.
So I want to go into that. Let's go into Serve First real quick. I listened to it. It's a great concept. What's funny about it is I found part of the reason I started this podcast was because I felt like I was stepping into what God had given me. Mm-hmm. I've had multiple businesses, and the thing that I found is I used my construction company to start the podcast because I needed the funding. There's a lot of expenses involved. And as I started to do that, which was serve what I felt was the body of Christ, because I'm getting people like you on, whether they're, well-known or not so well-known, I'm still highlighting people's gifts and talents. As I started doing that, I literally saw my construction company double overnight. I mean, it's significantly because I was serving and I'm giving. Which is a lot about what you talk about in your book. Why don't you go into that just a little bit and some of the things or miracles you've seen in people's lives because of that?
When I started being an author, I started going out and speaking and doing more of that. And I remember there was this event in California, Southern California, where these people that kind of knew me and watched me grow and stuff, they said, could you come out and give a talk on your success principles? What has helped you achieve success? It was actually, I think it was the 75th anniversary of Think and Grow Rich. That was the event. And so there were some real high-powered speakers there. I'm like, wait, you want me to talk on success when you got all these other people, right? I was looking at that. Anyway, what I decided to do, and I've been in a Bible study for 15 years, and I was telling the guys I'm going out there to do this, and they said, are you going to talk about some of your personal life or is this 100% business? I said, I don't know. I will see how the Spirit moves me. And the gentleman who was running the event, John, I told him he's also a believer, and I said, one of the principles that is part of my success is I give back, and I help God's kingdom grow, and I take care of people that are less fortunate than me. I said, I don't know if this is the right audience to share that. He says, I think it is, but you will know. And I said, I'm going to make this last point of my presentation the very last thing I talk about. And so I'm up there, and there's a big clock down at the foot of the stage, and I'm down to like 3 minutes, and I look over to the guy who's over by the soundboard, and he gives me a thumbs up. And when I looked back at the clock, it had 6 minutes on it, and he gave me a thumbs up, and he said, you do this, Jim. There's like a couple hundred people in there. And I said, I want to share one more. I didn't even think about it. I said, if I don't do this, I'll be a weenie and I'll just fly home. And so I talked about when you achieve success, you are required to share that, okay? And I started talking, I think I brought up Malachi and the power of giving back and tithing, and I'm horrible at quoting scripture off the cuff. But anyway, I told this story of how my wife and I, we support this organization called Good Works, Bridge of Hope, which supports unwed moms in crisis. And the final one I said was we support an organization called House of His Creation, which when typically teenagers are pregnant, they find themselves sometimes kicked out of the house, and they have a choice to make. They either get an abortion or whatever. And I said, this organization takes these kids in. The requirement is they stay in school. They not only help them with school, but they teach them work skills and things like that. But I said the most important thing where our money goes is it helps prevent one more abortion. It helps a baby be born. Man, I could feel tears running down my cheeks, and I saw a couple people like nodding, and I felt, John, to be honest with you, I felt so proud of myself when I got off stage that I shared that message. Anyway, let me fast forward. Then I start doing my own live events, and now I'm not on somebody else's stage, I'm on my own, and I share this in a much bigger way. Whenever I do one of my own events, it's a grueling 3-day thing. Of course, there's months of work prior to it's totally draining mentally. And so what I do is I take off the week after that, and I typically will go sit on my boat. And I remember after my event in Annapolis, I'm sitting on my boat, and it was a very successful event. People were joining my coaching program. We sold a lot of product. A month before that, my second grandchild was born. I just felt like I couldn't wipe the smile off my face, and I just prayed, and I said, God, why am I so blessed? I mean, I see people in my line of work that are struggling, and why am I so blessed? And over the course of literally one day, it was like this video show playing in my head, John, where I'm thinking of, here's how much money we gave here. Here's where we spend time. I donate not just money, but one Saturday a month to Good Works, where my wife and I are mentors to Bridge of Hope, and all these different things. And then literally a month before this, this gentleman named Walter, 93-year-old shut-in, no family, very lonely. Stephanie was his deacon. And one day about 3 years ago, she brought me over to install an air conditioner in his house and did that. And I just took a liking to him. He took a liking to my, off the cuff sense of humor. And we just bonded, and we'd end up taking him out to Wendy's on Saturday night for a junior cheeseburger, which he took like an hour and a half to eat, which was me. I eat like in 2 minutes. I'm sure you're the same when you're on the job. But anyway, all these things were playing through my head, and it was God telling me, this is how it's become commonplace in your life because of, how God has worked on my heart and my spirit. But so I don't think about it as being out of the ordinary, but it finds favor with God, and he's blessing me in return. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. And then he said, I'm not done with you. I want you to share this message. And I said, oh boy, he knows I know how to write books, right? But it takes a while to do that. And anyway, there was a couple nights where I woke up at 3 a.m. and I could not get back to sleep. And all I could think about was this message, serve first. God basically, I believe, told me, I know you're not going to write a book, and I want this message out. I want you to go into your little home studio and just record this message and put it out there. And I did that. The last thing I prayed about, John, was because I'm an internet marketer, do I have an opt-in? Do I want people to opt in? Do I charge them $1 and donate it to charity? And the message I got was, no, I want no impediments to somebody hearing this. So somebody downloads it free. I don't know they're there. I don't know if they've listened to it. It's nothing involved. It's just a complete freebie on my website. And the only thing I know is that page has been visited over 10,000 times.
Wow. So have you got some testimonies back from some of your customers or clients, or just people have heard it that have implemented Serve First? Have you heard some things on that?
In general, I've heard some, but mostly where I've had some, I don't want to call it accolades, but I think just words of appreciation were from my own clients, because I pressed it onto CDs and I gave it to all my clients and things like that, because I really wanted the message to get out, and they know who I am. I don't promote myself as a Christian business coach. I'm a business coach, and people know I'm a Christian, kind of a fine line, but so they know who I am, and I've shared this message. I say, you don't have to even tell me you listen to it. I just want to share this message with you. It has impacted my life in a very big way, and it would be remiss of me not to share it with you. That's kind of how I presented it to him.
Yeah, I'm really curious, Jim. How do you navigate? You talk about being a coach. You're a Christian. And what I have a hard time with is even like, say you're in an event and you're speaking. It's not a church event. We'll call it a secular event or whatever. But the hard part is like your DNA is Jesus, right? So you know the word, you have those things. Where do you find that balance? Do you just get led by the Lord? Or because that's really hard, because I feel like when you're speaking or talking to people, that's just who you are. But at the same time, culturally, in some places, it's not accepted and it's hard. So you don't want to be pushy, but yet at the same time, you're just like, man, this is what God has done in my life. I can't change the fact that that's who he is. So how do you navigate between the two of those?
Two things. Number one, I teach people how to be authentic, and that's who you are authentically. And I think if you're a Christian, you should be an authentic Christian. So I never censor my words. So even if this was a different interview, I always say I have been very blessed. I talk about, when I told my story, I said I got on my knees and I prayed for guidance. I may expand on it depending on the shows I'm on or if I know the host, but I will never censor who I am or what I've done. I totally believe God is the creator of the universe, and God saved my life literally and figuratively in 2001. And I will not turn my back on him to satisfy anybody. And further, this is an expression I live by. Whether you're working by yourself in your home office or in front of 200 people or whatever, you are always playing to an audience of one. God sees and knows everything. I love him so much. Like, my parent, his family, it's God's love, but I love him so much. I never want to disappoint him, which I do every day. But I never want to, if you're walking with somebody and you kind of like turn the corner, I don't want to see them right now because I'm, I don't know, whatever it is. But I never want to do that to the Lord. He's been so good to me. So I don't hide it. I purposely do not hide it. And that the audio of Serve First, it's on my homepage of my main website above the fold.
Okay. I love it. So Jim, what do you feel like your biggest strength is in what you do?
In general, the highest view is I help entrepreneurs elevate their game so they can have a bigger impact on the kingdom. That's not exactly how I would say it if I was at a secular event, but my biggest strength is marketing and branding, and I help entrepreneurs grow a more successful business. And by working closely with me for a year or more, I think that very much like in Good Works, we use home repair as a way to spend time with people. I think God uses the skills that he's blessed me with in terms of marketing and business growth. That's the tool that I use to build a pretty good sized community and work with a number of people. And by people wanting to grow their business, they get to work with me. And because they're working with me, they get to know who I am. John, the expression, how people see you live your life may be the only Bible they ever read. That's how I view the work that I do.
Okay. What would you say your biggest weakness is, something that you struggle with?
Well, I have the patience of a gnat, for one thing.
The lifespan of a gnat.
Honestly, I have a hair trigger. Not that I'm a volatile person, but so you and I are doing this interview, and initially this morning we got our time zones mixed up, and my wife does all my scheduling of my interviews and stuff. And instead of me just going, "Hey, what's going on here?" I go, "What's going on?" I just have this little thing because honestly, I just have so much on my plate. It's wrong of me to do that, and I will often apologize, and I've learned to apologize like in half an hour instead of 2 days.
Very nice.
As I get older in life, I've learned that. But yeah, I'm an impatient person when it comes to business and wanting different things. I'm very patient, I believe, when it comes to my kids and grandkids and things like that.
Nice. I'm same way, working on the same things. I think especially as entrepreneurs, like you said, there's so many irons in the fire. Sometimes my mind is thinking on another job, and I'm at a job, something happens, and you just get stressed out. So totally get it. So what is the biggest thing that God is stirring inside of you right now?
What I am feeling, and I've been feeling it for probably the last year, is I feel like I've done pretty well. And, I'm 58, so I'm not ready to retire, but I'm also not, I don't really want to keep putting in the hours I put in for the last 10, 12 years. But I think God's saying, I don't want you to slow down just yet. And I don't mean he doesn't want me to slow down in terms of hours. He doesn't want to slow down the impact that I can have, whether it's through my coaching program and helping people who are struggling suddenly grow a more successful business. And again, whatever that looks like and whatever rub-off effect there is, I think we're all put on this planet for a reason. I think we're all blessed with certain skills and talents. And I don't think we should go into coasting mode. I don't know, my kids, and this goes 20 years ago at least, maybe 25, they bought me a hammock, a really nice hammock for Father's Day. And we just sold our house because we're moving on to a boat. And so I got that thing out of the shed and I told my wife, I bet I haven't sat in this thing 18 minutes in 20 years because I can't sit still. So I doubt I ever will retire, but I would like to possibly slow down a little bit at some point.
Okay. What is a personal daily habit that helps you with your walk with the Lord?
I have made this a habit, so that's a good word in the question. But before I get out of bed, and I mean, unless I seriously drank too much water the night before, literally before I get out of bed, when I wake up in the morning, I thank the Lord for the blessing and the gift that this day is, because not everybody gets to wake up every day. Somebody does not wake up, right? And so it is a gift and a blessing, and part of that, I mean, a large part of that came from when I had cancer. And for 3 weeks before my surgery, John, I didn't know if I had stage 2 or stage 3. And the difference was, and I had to live with this for that long, I didn't know if my chances of being alive in 5 years were 80% or 50%. And so when you have that perspective, I actually have a very nice hourglass on my desk, and it always reminds me that the sand is always running out. And eventually you will run out of sand. You don't know when. God's the only one who knows when. But I thank him every day, and I pray. I pray at least twice a day, but I do little things like, honestly, if I get a green light, thank you, Lord. That's all I do. Thank you, Lord. Or if something good happens, I say, thank you, Lord, because God's in control of everything. But I pray in the shower because it's the one thing I do every single morning, like clockwork. I get out of bed and I take a shower. So I think some people go, well, I've suddenly found myself, it's the end of the day, I haven't prayed. But if you find yourself, we all have habits. So I tied my habit of wanting to be in prayer with the Lord, I tie it to being in the shower because that's the only thing that's almost constant in my day, every day.
That's good. I'm glad you're clean every day.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I'm just curious. Did you feel like I'm going back probably, my gosh, 40 years of a book a guy gave me, about 10 or 15 years ago. But do you remember Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, I think? And
I do remember that.
Okay, so there's a lot of books that I've read or seen over the years like that. But talking about like just speaking those words, you're talking about gratitude and those things. Because of that, have you seen, because you're speaking those things, that more positive things happen in your life, or that, I don't want to say attract, because you could get new agey, it could sound weird. The word I'm looking for is you're attracting more good things in your life because you're constantly have a good attitude, you're thankful. Do you see that more constantly in your life than you did before?
Most definitely. And here's the thing, even before you're successful, whatever that means to you, if there's things that you want or like, you should spend time. For me, I've always wanted a really big boat that we're going to live on. And so I go to boat shows. Long before I could afford a boat, I was going to boat shows because you know what? There's a lot of nice, expensive stuff there, or looking at different things. I actually teach people some of these. I think a lot of people have money hangups. They have actually, some people have hangups about earning money, which, is a lot of things. But you see, a lot of people, I think, remember their childhood as being one of lack. I call it top of the stairs thinking. When maybe your kid, you're sitting on top of the stairs, you're overhearing your parents talk, we got no money for this, we can't afford that. Honey, don't buy any more of this, that, or the other thing. No, we can't go on 2 weeks vacation. So that's ingrained in us. And that does not have to be your life. I mean, there are plenty of ways to create wealth and success for yourself. So one of the things that is a very simple thing, and I couldn't always do it. I mean, there was when I was out of work, I'd be lucky if I had $5 in my wallet, literally, and only because I didn't want to be caught as a vagrant or something in the old days where you got arrested for that. But literally what I do now, I mean, most of my life exists on a credit card. We do all the airline miles and stuff, but I have cash everywhere. If I open my desk drawer, there's probably $30 or $40 in cash. I have cash in the little console between my seats. I have cash in the cup holder on my boat. I have cash everywhere. And the reason is everywhere I go, I see cash. And that tells my mind that there's an abundance, that I'm not in a state of lack. So your subconscious mind actually is the thing that is going to drive you. And if you don't believe me, this is not woo-woo. If you have a dream at night that you're being chased by a black bear and he's bearing down on you and you wake up, you will be in a sweat and your heart will be racing. And that's because your mind can't tell the difference between what's playing in your mind and what's real. So what you do want to play in your mind, you do want to play positive things. I can do this. Instead of saying I can't afford this, you change it and say, what has to happen for me to do this? What has to happen? Or if I want to say yes to this, what do I have to say no to if I feel like I'm too packed in? So how we talk to ourselves and how we interact, things we see. I mean, I do my really level best not to watch news because it's so negative. I can't tell you how many people I've unfriended on Facebook this political season because I don't want to see negative garbage and trash and fights. Yeah. I mean, for real, your mind is unbelievably powerful computer, and garbage in, garbage out. If you focus on abundance and you focus on success, if you focus on positive can-do things, and then you marry that up with action, it's going to work most of the time.
I love it. Firm believer in everything you just said. So can you share with me a resource for our listeners, even one of your resources that you feel would be great for my listeners to dive into that you have?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Well, I'd like to give you two. So we've mentioned Serve First. That is free. If you go to getjimpalmer.com, you'll see it. There's a banner there. And if you can't see it, you can just /Serve First. I won't even know you're there. Just download it, listen to it. I hope it blesses you. If you're a business owner or want to figure out some of you and I just in the last 5 minutes, John talked about mindset. My latest book is called Decide, the Ultimate Success Trigger. It was kind of like writing this book on a therapist couch. I reveal a lot of the head trash and things that were holding me back, what I did to get over them. I'm still giving away free copies of that book. It's about a 185-page book. I'll mail you a copy within 12 to 24 hours. If you go to decideforsuccessbook.com, decideforsuccessbook.com, the only thing I'll ask is that you pick up the $6.95 shipping and handling, but I will mail you that book. And what you'll learn in there, you will hear me not be shy about my beliefs, but more importantly, I tackle a whole bunch of the head trash that holds us back.
Okay. Absolutely fantastic. Listeners, we'll have all that listed as well. Jim, what would be a piece of parting advice that you would like to give our listeners, whether they have a business or they're just struggling in life? What would you tell them?
Well, if you don't have a business, I would actually, this will seem self-serving, but the title of my fifth book is Stop Waiting for It to Get Easier. Because people, what's a good time? The best time to plant a tree, ancient Chinese proverb says 20 years ago, the second best time is today. You got to get in action today. Stop waiting for the economy, the election, for this, for that, for any of your kids to grow up. Start your business now. There is a way to do that. If you do have a business and you're struggling, I would say this, and this is something that like 99% of the people that I work with struggle with. You will earn significantly more revenue for who you are and not what you do. It's not about the deliverable. It's not about the actual service you provide. If you want to change from being somebody who has to pursue new clients instead of being the pursued, you want to increase your brand and your position. You want to be known as the go-to choice for whatever it is you do.
Okay. I love that, man. All right. Jim, hold on a second. Listeners, if you get a chance right now, rate and review us, jump on and check out Jim's books. All of his stuff will be on our show notes page, on the front page. Type in Jim's name and get on there. Check out his stuff. I highly recommend it. The audiobook download, I listened to it this morning. It was fantastic. Please rate, review us. Again, I'm asking. We've been number 3 in iTunes in the U.S. for the last month. So thank you guys so much. And again, remember, at the end of the day, be real, be authentic, and be you. God bless.
That's all for this episode of Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You. Be sure to go to areyoureal.org for your free questionnaire to identify your gifts and talents and how you can use them to help people become leaders and catapult them into their destiny to help others become the leaders of tomorrow. We appreciate you spending your time with us and look forward to helping you reach out and revolutionize next time on Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You.